You know, right now, in this very moment, there's something weighing on your heart. There's something that's been keeping you up at night. There's a situation in your life that feels unbearable, and you've been carrying it around like a heavy stone, trying to figure it out, trying to control it, trying to make it turn out the way you think it should. And I want to tell you something that might just change everything for you today. It's time to put that burden down. It's time to leave it in God's hands. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, but I've tried everything. I've prayed, I've hoped, I've worked so hard, and nothing's changed. And that's exactly the point. You've been trying to do it all yourself. You've been holding on so tight to your problems, to your pain, to your circumstances, that you've forgotten something fundamental about how this universe works. You've forgotten that there's a power greater than you, a wisdom far beyond your limited perspective, and an intelligence that orchestrates everything in perfect timing. When you're in pain, when you're hurting, when you're going through something that feels like it's tearing you apart, it's the most natural thing in the world to try to fix it yourself. We're conditioned to believe that we have to control everything, that we have to have all the answers, that if we just work hard enough, or think hard enough, or worry hard enough, we can somehow force life to bend to our will. But let me tell you something that's going to set you free. You were never meant to carry these burdens alone. You were never designed to figure everything out by yourself. And the moment you truly understand this, the moment you really let it sink into your consciousness, everything shifts. God sees your pain. Every tear you've cried in the darkness, every moment you felt alone, every time your heart has broken into what feels like a million pieces, none of it has gone unnoticed. None of it has been ignored. The divine presence that created you, that breathed life into you, that knows every single hair on your head, sees everything you're going through. And not only does God see your pain, but God hears your cry. Every prayer, every desperate plea, every whispered help me in the middle of the night when you couldn't sleep, every single one has been heard. But here's where most people get stuck. They think that because they've prayed and things haven't changed yet, that God isn't listening. They think that because they're still in pain, still in the struggle, still in the darkness, that somehow they've been abandoned. And this couldn't be further from the truth. You see, God's timing is not your timing. God's ways are not your ways. And what you're perceiving as silence is actually the universe rearranging itself on your behalf. Think about it this way. When you plant a seed in the ground, you don't dig it up every single day to check if it's growing. You don't stand over it and worry and stress and try to force it to sprout faster. You plant it, you water it, you give it sunlight, and then you trust. You trust the process. You trust that beneath the surface, in the darkness of the soil, something miraculous is happening. The seed is breaking open, roots are forming, life is preparing to burst forth. But all of this happens in a time frame that the seed knows, not in the time frame you demand. Your life works the same way. The challenges you're facing right now, the pain you're experiencing, the situations that seem impossible, they're all seeds that have been planted. And yes, it's dark right now. Yes, it feels like nothing is happening. Yes, it seems like your prayers are falling on deaf ears. But I promise you, beneath the surface of what you can see, God is working. The universe is conspiring on your behalf. Things are shifting and changing and moving in ways that you cannot perceive with your limited human perspective. The problem is, we want instant results. We want our pain to disappear overnight. We want our problems solved immediately. We want what we want, and we want it now. And when it doesn't happen according to our schedule, we lose faith. We start to doubt. We begin to think that we're doing something wrong, or that we're not worthy, or that God has forgotten about us. But this is where we need to shift our understanding completely. Leaving it in God's hands doesn't mean sitting back and doing nothing. It doesn't mean being passive or giving up or resigning yourself to misery. What it means is doing what you can do, taking the actions that are yours to take, and then releasing your attachment to the outcome. It means understanding that you're not the one in control of how things unfold. You're not the director of this movie. You're not the author who gets to write every single plot twist. You're a participant in a much larger story, and there's a wisdom guiding that story that's far greater than anything you could comprehend. When you truly leave something in God's hands, you're acknowledging that you don't have all the answers. You're admitting that your perspective is limited. You're recognizing that what you think you want might not actually be what's best for you. And this takes tremendous courage. It takes tremendous faith, because it means letting go of control. And for most of us, that's the scariest thing in the world. But here's what happens when you really do this. When you really surrender your burdens, when you really trust that God has got this, when you really believe that the universe is working for you and not against you, a weight lifts. The anxiety that's been crushing your chest starts to ease. The fear that's been keeping you paralyzed begins to fade. And in its place comes a peace that surpasses all understanding. Not because your circumstances have changed yet, but because your relationship to those circumstances has transformed. You stop waking up every morning with that immediate rush of dread. You stop going to bed every night with your mind racing through all the worst-case scenarios. You stop carrying that tension in your shoulders, that knot in your stomach, that heaviness in your heart, because you finally understood that this isn't all on you. You finally realized that you don't have to have all the figured out. You finally accepted that it's okay to not be in control. And here's the beautiful paradox. The moment you stop trying to control everything, the moment you surrender to the flow of life, the moment you trust in something greater than yourself, that's when things actually start to shift. That's when solutions appear that you never could have thought of. That's when doors open that you didn't even know existed. That's when people show up in your life who bring exactly what you need. That's when circumstances align in ways that seem almost miraculous. But you have to understand something important. God's plan for you might not look like your plan for you. The way your life unfolds might not match the picture you had in your mind. And this is actually a blessing, even though it doesn't feel like it at the time. Because your limited perspective can only see what you think you want based on your past experiences, your conditioning, your fears, and your ego's desires. But God sees the bigger picture. God knows what you actually need to grow, to evolve, to become the person you're meant to be. Sometimes what looks like a rejection is actually protection. Sometimes what feels like a delay is actually divine timing. Sometimes what seems like a door closing is actually the universe redirecting you to something better. But you can't see this when you're in the middle of the pain. You can't understand it when you're in the thick of the struggle. You can only see it when you look back, when you're on the other side, when you realize that everything happened exactly as it needed to happen. I know you're hurting right now. I know you're tired. I know you've been strong for so long and you just want this to be over. I know you've been praying and hoping and doing everything you know how to do, and you're exhausted. And I want you to know that it's okay to be tired. It's okay to feel weak. It's okay to admit that you can't do this alone. Because that admission, that vulnerability, that honest acknowledgement of your limitations, that's not weakness. That's actually the beginning of true strength. True strength isn't about never breaking. It's not about always being in control. It's not about having all the answers or never showing your pain. True strength is about knowing when to hold on and when to let go. It's about doing your part and then trusting God to do the rest. It's about being willing to walk through the darkness with faith, even when you can't see where you're going. And faith, real faith, isn't about being certain of the outcome. It's not about knowing exactly how things are going to turn out. Real faith is about trusting the process even when you can't see the result. It's about believing that you're being guided even when the path is unclear. It's about knowing that you're being held even when you feel like you're falling. You see, God hears your cry not just as sound, but as the deepest longing of your soul. And the response isn't always what you expect. Sometimes the answer to your prayer isn't getting what you asked for. Sometimes the answer is getting what you need. Sometimes the answer is developing the strength to handle whatever comes. Sometimes the answer is learning to find peace regardless of your circumstances. Sometimes the answer is becoming a different person, someone who no longer needs the situation to change in order to be okay. This is the transformation that happens when you truly leave it in God's hands. You stop being controlled by your circumstances. You stop letting external conditions determine your internal state. You start to understand that peace isn't something you find when everything works out the way you want. Peace is something you cultivate from within, regardless of what's happening around you. And I want to be clear about something. Leaving it in God's hands doesn't mean you stop caring. It doesn't mean you become cold or detached or indifferent. It means you care deeply, you give it your all, you do everything that's genuinely yours to do, and then you release the outcome. You trust that whatever happens, even if it's not what you wanted, even if it's not what you expected, it's what's needed for your highest good and your greatest growth. Think about the times in your life when things didn't work out the way you planned. Think about the times when you were devastated because something you wanted so badly didn't happen. or something you loved so much was taken away. Now look at where you are today. Can you see how those moments, as painful as they were, led you to something better? Can you see how those closed doors eventually led you to open windows? Can you see how what felt like the worst thing that could happen actually became a turning point? This is the pattern of how life works when you're aligned with the divine flow. This is what happens when you trust in something greater than yourself. This is the evidence that God is always working on your behalf, even when it doesn't feel like it, even when you can't see it, even when you want to give up. Your pain is not permanent. Your struggle is not your identity. Your current circumstances are not your final destination. They're just a chapter in your story, and the author of your story is writing something far more beautiful than you could write for yourself. But you have to let the story unfold. You have to stop trying to skip ahead to the end. You have to stop trying to rewrite every scene that doesn't match your expectations. When you're going through difficult times, it's easy to forget who you really are. It's easy to get so consumed by the problem that you lose sight of your own divine nature. But you are not your problems. You are not your pain. You are not your circumstances. You are a spiritual being having a human experience, and that spiritual essence within you is connected to the same power that created galaxies and orchestrates the perfect harmony of nature. That means you have access to infinite wisdom. You have access to unlimited strength. You have access to a peace that exists beyond all understanding. But you can only access these things when you get out of your own way. You can only tap into this power when you stop trying to do everything yourself. You can only experience this peace when you surrender your need to control. And surrender is not defeat. Let me say that again because this is so important. Surrender is not giving up. Surrender is not admitting failure. Surrender is acknowledging that there's a greater intelligence at work and you're choosing to align with it rather than fight against it. Surrender is the ultimate act of faith. It's saying, I trust that I'm being taken care of even when I can't see how. I trust that everything is working out for my highest good, even when it doesn't look like it. I trust that God has got this, even when I feel lost. This trust, this faith, this willingness to surrender, it changes everything. It changes your energy. It changes how you show up in the world. It changes what you attract into your life. Because when you're not desperately clinging and grasping and forcing and controlling, you create space for miracles to happen. You create an opening for grace to flow in. You become a vessel through which the divine can work. And God is always trying to work through you. God is always trying to guide you. God is always trying to show you the way. But if you're too busy running around in fear and panic and anxiety, if you're too caught up in your own limited thinking and your own desperate attempts to fix everything, you can't hear the guidance. You can't see the signs. You can't feel the nudges that are trying to point you in the right direction. Leaving it in God's hands creates the stillness necessary to receive divine guidance. It creates the calm necessary to hear the whispers of intuition. It creates the clarity necessary to see the path that's being illuminated for you. And when you start to see these things, when you start to notice the synchronicities and the small miracles and the perfect timing of events, your faith deepens. Your trust strengthens. Your peace expands. You start to realize that you're never alone. You start to understand that you're always supported. You start to recognize that even in your darkest moments, even when you felt abandoned, even when you thought no one could possibly understand what you were going through, God was there. God was holding you. God was carrying you through. And those prayers you thought weren't being answered, they were being answered all along, just not in the way you expected. Not in the timing you demanded, not in the form you thought you needed, but in the way that was actually best for you, in the timing that was actually perfect for your growth, in the form that was actually aligned with your highest good. Every single thing you've been through has been preparing you for something. Every challenge has been teaching you something. Every hardship has been strengthening you in some way. And I know it's hard to see this when you're in the middle of the storm. I know it's difficult to believe this when you're drowning in pain, but it's true nonetheless. Your struggles are not punishments. Your difficulties are not evidence that you've done something wrong or that you're not worthy or that God has turned away from you. They're invitations to grow. They're opportunities to develop faith. They're chances to discover strength you didn't know you had. They're doorways to a deeper understanding of yourself and your connection to the recite. Divine. And when you can shift your perspective to see your challenges this way, when you can reframe your pain as a catalyst for transformation, when you can view your struggles as sacred assignments rather than cruel punishments, everything changes. The same circumstances that were making you bitter start making you better. The same situations that were filling you with resentment start filling you with resilience. The same experiences that were breaking you down start building you up. This is the alchemy that happens when you truly leave it in God's hands. This is the magic that occurs when you surrender your burdens and trust the process. You don't become someone who never has problems. You become someone who handles problems differently. You don't become someone who never feels pain. You become someone who moves through pain with more grace. You don't become someone who never struggles. You become someone who struggles with faith instead of fear. And faith isn't the absence of doubt. Faith isn't pretending everything is fine when it's not. Faith isn't forcing yourself to smile when you want to cry. Real faith is being honest about where you are while still trusting where you're going. Real faith is acknowledging the difficulty while still believing in the possibility. Real faith is feeling the pain while still holding on to hope. Hope is not naive optimism. Hope is not denying reality. Hope is a spiritual practice. It's a choice you make every single day to believe that things can get better, even when you have no evidence. It's a decision to keep going, even when you're exhausted. It's a commitment to trust, even when you're scared. And every time you choose hope over despair, every time you choose faith over fear, every time you choose to trust God instead of trying to control everything yourself, you're building your spiritual strength. You're deepening your connection to the divine. You're becoming more aligned with your true nature. And this alignment is what ultimately brings the peace you're seeking. Because peace was never meant to come from having a perfect life. Peace was never meant to come from having all your problems solved. Peace was never meant to come from getting everything you want exactly when you want it. Peace comes from knowing that no matter what happens, you're going to be okay. Peace comes from trusting that you're being guided. Peace comes from believing that God has got you, and God does have you. Right now, in this moment, regardless of what you're going through, regardless of how bad things look, regardless of how much pain you're in, God has you. You are held, you are loved, you are supported. You are not alone. You have never been alone. You will never be alone. The divine presence that breathed life into you at the beginning is with you now and will be with you always. This presence knows your name. This presence feels your pain. This presence hears your cry. And this presence is working on your behalf in ways you cannot see, in dimensions you cannot perceive, through means you cannot understand. Your job is not to figure it all out. Your job is not to make it all happen. Your job is not to force and push and control. Your job is to show up. Your job is to do the next right thing. Your job is to take one step at a time. And then your job is to trust, to have faith, to leave it in God's hands. When you do this, when you really do this, you'll start to notice things. You'll start to see how you're being guided. You'll start to recognize how doors are opening at exactly the right time. You'll start to realize how people are showing up with exactly what you need. You'll start to understand how everything is connected, how everything is orchestrated, how nothing is random. You'll look back at the times you thought you were lost, and you'll see that you were actually being redirected. You'll look back at the times you thought you were broken, and you'll see that you were actually being rebuilt into something stronger. You'll look back at the times you thought God wasn't listening, and you'll see that you were being heard all along. This is the perspective that comes with time and faith. This is the wisdom that comes from trusting the process. This is the peace that comes from leaving it in God's hands. And it's available to you right now, not someday when everything works out, not eventually when all your problems are solved. Right now, exactly as you are, exactly where you are. You don't have to wait until you're perfect to trust God. You don't have to wait until you have it all figured out to have faith. You don't have to wait until your life looks a certain way to surrender your burdens. You can do it now. You can do it right in the middle of your mess. You can do it while you're still hurting, while you're still struggling, while you're still scared. In fact, that's the best time to do it. When you're at the end of your rope, when you've tried everything else, when you have nowhere else to turn, that's when surrender becomes real. That's when faith becomes genuine. That's when trust becomes transformative. So if you're there right now, if you're at that place where you can't carry this anymore, if you're at that point where you need help, if you're at that moment where you're ready to let go, I want you to know that this is not a sign of weakness. This is a sign of wisdom. This is not giving up. This is waking up. This is not failure. This is faith. Take whatever burden you've been carrying and mentally place it in God's hands. See yourself physically taking this weight off your shoulders and giving it over to a power greater than yourself. Feel the relief that comes with releasing control. Feel the peace that flows in when you stop resisting. Feel the love that surrounds you when you remember you're not alone. And then, after you've surrendered it, after you've released it, after you've left it in God's hands, let it stay there. Don't pick it back up 5 minutes later. Don't take it back because you're nervous about how things will turn out. Don't grab onto it again because you think you know better. Let it go. Really let it go. Trust that it's being handled. Trust that it's being worked out. Trust that God's got this. This doesn't mean you'll never think about it again. It doesn't mean you'll never feel concerned. It doesn't mean you become completely detached. It means that when the worry comes back, when the fear creeps in, when the anxiety starts to rise, you notice it, you acknowledge it, and then you consciously choose to release it again. You say, no, I already gave this to God. I'm trusting the process. I'm having faith. And you do this as many times as necessary. This is the practice. This is the spiritual work. This is how you build your faith muscles and strengthen your trust and deepen your connection to the divine. Every time you catch yourself trying to take back control and you consciously choose to surrender again, you're growing. You're evolving. You're becoming more aligned with your true spiritual nature. This is not always easy. Some days it will feel natural and peaceful. Other days it will feel impossible and you'll struggle. And that's okay. That's part of being human. What matters is that you keep coming back to it. You keep choosing faith. You keep trusting. You keep leaving it in God's hands. And over time, something beautiful happens. The peace that felt temporary starts to feel more permanent. The trust that felt shaky starts to feel more solid. The faith that felt weak starts to feel stronger. And you realize that you're changing. Not because your circumstances have necessarily changed, but because you have changed. Your relationship with life has changed. Your understanding of how the universe works has changed. Your connection to God has changed. You're no longer someone who falls apart at every obstacle. You're no longer someone who's controlled by fear. You're no longer someone who thinks they have to do everything alone. You've become someone who knows how to surrender. You've become someone who understands the power of faith. You've become someone who trusts that they're always being guided and supported by something greater than themselves. This transformation is what's waiting for you on the other side of surrender. This peace is what's available when you truly leave it in God's hands. This strength is what you discover when you stop trying to be strong all by yourself and instead allow yourself to be strengthened by divine power. So let go, release your grip, open your hands, stop fighting so hard, stop trying to control what you cannot control. Stop carrying burdens you were never meant to carry alone. Put them down, hand them over. Leave them in God's hands. Trust that you are seen, trust that you are heard, trust that you are loved, trust that you are guided, trust that everything is working out for your highest good, even if you can't see how yet. Trust that your prayers are being answered, even if not in the way you expected. Trust that your pain has purpose, even if you don't understand it yet. And most of all, trust that you are not alone. You have never been alone. In your darkest moments, in your deepest pain, in your greatest struggles, God has been there. God has seen every tear. God has heard every cry. God has felt every heartbreak. And God is working on your behalf right now, in this very moment, arranging circumstances, aligning opportunities, preparing blessings that you cannot yet imagine. Your job is simply to trust, to have faith, to keep going, to take one step at a time, and to leave the rest in God's hands. Do this, and you will find peace. Do this, and you will find strength. Do this, and you will find that you're capable of handling whatever life brings your way. Not because you're doing it alone, but because you finally understood that you never had to. You were always meant to walk this path hand in hand with the divine, supported by infinite love, guided by infinite wisdom, held by infinite grace. Leave it in God's hands and watch what happens. Watch how things shift. Watch how doors open. Watch how solutions appear. Watch how your burden lifts. Watch how your peace deepens. Watch how your faith grows. Watch how your life transforms. Not always in the ways you expect, but always in the ways you need. Always at the perfect time. Always for your highest good. Always with love. Always with purpose. Always with grace. This is the promise. This is the truth. This is the way. Leave it in God's hands and trust that you are being taken care of, because you are. Right now, always, forever. Right now, at this very moment, you're carrying something that was never meant to be yours to carry. You're holding on to worries, fears, anxieties, and problems that are weighing you down, making each step harder than it needs to be. And here's what I want you to understand today. You don't have to carry any of it, not one single bit of it. There's a force in this universe, a power greater than anything you can comprehend with your logical mind, and it's waiting for you to simply let go and allow it to work miracles in your life. You see, most of us have been taught to rely entirely on ourselves. We've been conditioned to believe that if we don't worry about something, it won't get done. If we don't stress about our problems, they won't get solved. If we don't control every aspect of our lives, everything will fall apart. But this is the biggest lie we've ever been told. This belief is the source of all your suffering, all your pain, all your sleepless nights. And today, I'm here to tell you that there's another way. There's a better way. There's a way that brings peace, joy, and miracles into your life without all that struggle. When you give it to God, when you truly surrender your worries and your problems to this infinite intelligence, you're not giving up. You're not being lazy. You're not avoiding responsibility. What you're doing is aligning yourself with the most powerful force in the universe. You're stepping out of your own way. You're removing the biggest obstacle to your success, which is your ego's insistence that you have to figure everything out on your own. Think about this for a moment. The same power that creates galaxies, that makes flowers bloom, that keeps your heart beating without you having to think about it, that power is available to you right now. It's not somewhere far away. It's not reserved for special people. It's right here, right now, within you and around you. And all it asks of you is that you trust it. All it requires is that you stop trying to force things to happen and instead allow them to unfold naturally. I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, but I have real problems. I have bills to pay. I have responsibilities. I can't just sit around and do nothing. And you're absolutely right. I'm not telling you to do nothing. I'm telling you to do everything differently. I'm telling you to act from a place of peace instead of panic. I'm telling you to move forward with faith instead of fear. I'm telling you to trust that when you do your part and then let go of the outcome, miracles happen. Here's the secret that changed my life and has changed the lives of millions of people. Worry is absolutely useless. It doesn't solve a single problem. It doesn't prevent anything bad from happening. It doesn't make you more prepared. All worry does is steal your joy, drain your energy, and block the very solutions you're looking for. Worry is like sitting in a rocking chair. It gives you something to do, but it doesn't get you anywhere. When you worry, you're essentially saying to the universe, I don't trust you. I don't believe you can handle this. I have to figure this out on my own. And when you send out that energy of distrust and fear, you block the flow of miracles. You close the door to possibilities. You disconnect yourself from the source of all solutions. But when you give it to God, when you say, I trust that this will work out for my highest good, you open yourself up to receive help in ways you could never have planned or predicted. Let me tell you something that most people don't understand. The universe is not neutral. It's not indifferent to you. There's an organizing intelligence that wants you to succeed, that wants you to be happy, that wants you to live your best life. But it can't help you if you're constantly pushing against it with your worry and your need to control. It's like trying to swim upstream. You exhaust yourself, you make no progress, and you miss all the beauty around you. I've seen this play out thousands of times. Someone has a problem that seems impossible to solve. They've tried everything. They've worried themselves sick. They've lost sleep. They've made themselves miserable. And then, finally, when they're at the end of their rope, they surrender. They say, okay, I can't do this anymore. I'm giving this to you, God. I trust you to handle this. And within days, sometimes within hours, a solution appears. A door opens. A person shows up. An opportunity presents itself. Something shifts. And what seemed impossible becomes not only possible but easy. This isn't magic, this isn't wishful thinking. This is how the universe actually works. When you align yourself with the creative power of the universe, when you stop resisting and start allowing, you become a channel for miracles. You become available to receive guidance, inspiration, and help from sources you never expected. You tap into a wisdom that's far greater than your logical mind could ever access. Now, I want to address something important here. Giving it to God doesn't mean you become passive. It doesn't mean you sit on your couch eating potato chips waiting for a check to appear in your mailbox. What it means is that you take inspired action rather than desperate action. You move forward with confidence rather than anxiety. You do what needs to be done, but you do it from a place of trust rather than fear. There's a huge difference between these two approaches. When you act from fear, you're operating from your ego. Your ego tells you that you have to push, force, manipulate, and control. Your ego tells you that if you don't worry, something terrible will happen. Your ego keeps you stuck in struggle because struggle is what it knows. But when you act from trust, you're operating from your higher self. Your higher self knows that you're supported. Your higher self knows that everything is working out. Your higher self guides you toward the right actions at the right time. Think about the best moments in your life. Think about the times when things just flowed, when the right person showed up at the right time, when an opportunity came out of nowhere, when a problem solved itself. What was your state of mind during those times? I'll bet you weren't worrying. I'll bet you weren't stressing. I'll bet you were in a state of relative peace, maybe even joy. That's because when you're in that state, you're aligned with the creative power of the universe. You're in the flow. And here's what's really beautiful about this. The more you practice giving your worries to God, the easier it becomes. The first time you do it, your ego will fight you. It'll tell you that you're being irresponsible. It'll try to pull you back into worry. But if you persist, if you keep choosing trust over fear, something remarkable happens. You start to see evidence that this works. You start to notice that when you let go, things work out. And as you accumulate more and more evidence, your faith grows stronger. Faith isn't something you're born with or without. Faith is something you develop through practice. It's like a muscle that gets stronger the more you use it. Every time you give a worry to God and then witness how it gets resolved, your faith muscle grows. Every time you trust instead of panic and then see a positive outcome, you're training yourself to trust more easily the next time. Let me share something with you that's absolutely crucial to understand. The worry you're holding on to right now is not protecting you from anything. It's not making you safer. It's not making you smarter. It's not making you more prepared. All it's doing is making you miserable. And here's the really important part. Your misery is not required for things to work out. In fact, your misery is getting in the way of things working out. You don't have to suffer to earn good outcomes. You don't have to prove your worthiness through stress and struggle. You don't have to pay your dues with anxiety and fear. These are all lies we've been told, beliefs that have been passed down through generations. The truth is that you're worthy of miracles right now, exactly as you are. You're worthy of ease. You're worthy of grace. You're worthy of having things work out better than you could have planned. When you truly understand this, when you really get it in your bones, everything changes. You stop being at war with life. You stop fighting against what is. You stop trying to force outcomes. Instead, you start to flow with life. You start to trust the process. You start to see challenges as opportunities for growth rather than threats to your survival. And this is when the impossible becomes possible. This is when miracles start showing up in your life. Not because you've done something special, but because you've stopped blocking them. You've stopped standing in your own way. You've stopped letting your ego run the show. You've surrendered to something greater than yourself. And in that surrender, you've found true power. I want you to think about water for a moment. Water is soft, yielding, flexible. It doesn't try to force its way through obstacles. It simply flows around them. And yet, over time, water carves through rock. Water shapes mountains. Water is one of the most powerful forces on earth, precisely because it doesn't resist. It doesn't fight. It simply flows. This is the power of surrender. This is the power of giving it to God. You become like water. You stop forcing. You stop pushing. You stop struggling. And in that state of flow, you become unstoppable. Not because you're using force, but because you're aligned with the natural order of the universe. Now, I know some of you are thinking about specific problems in your life right now. Maybe you're worried about money. Maybe you're concerned about a relationship. Maybe you're dealing with health issues. Maybe you're facing a challenge at work. Whatever it is, I want you to understand something. The same principle applies to all of it. Every single problem, every worry, every fear can be given to God. When you worry about money, you're telling the universe that you believe in scarcity. You're affirming that there's not enough. You're focusing on lack, and what you focus on expands. But when you give your money worries to God, when you trust that you'll be provided for, you open yourself up to receive abundance. You start to notice opportunities you were blind to before. Ideas come to you. People appear who can help you. Doors open that were previously closed. When you worry about relationships, you're coming from a place of fear and insecurity. You're trying to control another person's behavior. You're clinging and grasping, and this energy pushes people away. But when you give your relationship concerns to God, when you trust that you're worthy of love and that the right people will be in your life, everything shifts. You stop being needy. You start being more authentic. You attract people who are aligned with your true self. When you worry about your health, you're putting all your attention on what's wrong. You're reinforcing the illness with your focus. You're stressing your body with fear, which actually weakens your immune system. But when you give your health concerns to God, when you trust in your body's natural healing ability, when you focus on wellness rather than illness, you activate your body's innate intelligence. You support your healing rather than hindering it. Do you see the pattern here? In every area of your life, worry makes things worse, and trust makes things better. It's really that simple. And yet, so many of us have been conditioned to do the exact opposite. We've been taught to worry, to stress, to analyze, to figure everything out with our logical minds. But the logical mind is limited. It can only work with information it already has. It can only see possibilities based on past experience. The creative intelligence of the universe has no such limitations. It can create solutions you've never thought of. It can open doors that don't even exist yet. It can orchestrate events in ways that seem miraculous, but only if you get out of the way. Only if you stop trying to control how things happen and instead trust that they will happen in the perfect way at the perfect time. Here's another thing I want you to understand. When you give it to God, you're not alone anymore. You're not carrying the burden by yourself. You have the entire universe supporting you. You have an infinite intelligence guiding you. You have a power working on your behalf that never sleeps, never gets tired, never gives up. This power is working for you right now, even as you read these words. It's arranging circumstances. It's aligning events. It's bringing together the people, resources, and opportunities you need. But here's what stops most people from experiencing this support. They keep taking the burden back. They give it to God, and then 10 minutes later, they're worrying about it again. They surrender, and then they immediately try to control again. It's like trying to float in water, but constantly tensing up and thrashing around. You can't float if you're fighting. You can't receive help if you're insisting on doing everything yourself. This is why developing a practice of surrender is so important. It's not a one-time thing. It's a daily practice, a moment-to-moment practice. Every time you notice yourself worrying, you pause. You take a breath. You consciously give that worry to God. You say, I release this. I trust you to handle this. I know it's being taken care of. And then you redirect your attention to something that brings you peace or joy. At first, you might have to do this 50 times a day. Your mind is trained to worry. It's a habit. But habits can be changed. Every time you choose trust over worry, you're creating a new neural pathway in your brain. You're literally rewiring yourself. And over time, trust becomes your default state. Peace becomes your natural condition. And this is when you're living in the miraculous. Living in the miraculous doesn't mean that challenges disappear. It means you handle challenges differently. It means you face difficulties with peace instead of panic. It means you trust that even the hard things are working for your highest good. It means you see every experience as an opportunity to grow, to learn, to expand. And here's something really important. When you live this way, you inspire others. You become a light in the darkness. People look at you and wonder how you stay so calm, so peaceful, so joyful in the midst of life's storms. And you can share with them what you've learned. You can tell them about the power of surrender. You can show them through your example that there's another way to live. This is how we change the world, not through force or struggle, but through being living examples of peace, trust, and faith. When enough people start living this way, the entire collective consciousness shifts. We create a tipping point where love becomes stronger than fear, where trust becomes stronger than worry, where faith becomes stronger than doubt. But it starts with you. It starts with your willingness to let go of your need to control. It starts with your decision to trust. It starts with you giving your worries to God and keeping them there. Not because you're weak, but because you're wise. Not because you can't handle things, but because you understand that there's a better way. Let me tell you something else that's really important. When you give it to God, you're not avoiding responsibility. You're actually becoming more responsible. You're taking responsibility for your energy, for your vibration, for your state of mind. You're recognizing that the most important thing you can do is maintain your inner peace. Because when you're at peace, you make better decisions. When you're at peace, you're more creative. When you're at peace, you're more effective in everything you do. Think about it this way. If you're drowning in worry and anxiety, how much good can you really do? How much joy can you experience? How much love can you give? How much creativity can you express? The answer is not much. Worry depletes you. It drains your energy. It clouds your judgment. It blocks your intuition. It disconnects you from your source. But when you're at peace, when you're trusting, when you've given your worries to God, you're operating at your highest level. You're clear. You're energized. You're inspired. You're guided. You're effective. You're actually able to do what needs to be done and do it well because you're not doing it from a place of desperation or fear. This is what it means to let go and let God. You do your part with excellence, but you release your attachment to the outcome. You take action when action is called for, but you don't force things. You show up fully, but you trust that the results are being handled by a power greater than yourself. And here's what happens when you live this way. You start to experience synchronicities. Meaningful coincidences start happening all the time. You think of someone and they call you. You need information and you randomly run into someone who has it. You're wondering what to do next and a clear sign appears. These aren't accidents. These are the universe's way of showing you that you're aligned, that you're on the right path, that you're being guided. Pay attention to these synchronicities. They're messages for you. They're confirmation that you're connected to the infinite intelligence. They're evidence that you're not alone, that you're being supported, that miracles are real. And the more you notice them and acknowledge them with gratitude, the more they happen. It becomes a beautiful feedback loop where faith generates evidence, which generates more faith, which generates more evidence. Now, I want to address something that often comes up when people start practicing surrender. Sometimes, when you give something to God, the situation gets worse before it gets better. This is actually a good sign. It means that whatever needed to fall away is falling away. It means that old patterns are breaking down so new ones can form. It means that you're being cleared out to make room for something better. When this happens, don't panic. Don't think that surrender isn't working. Don't take the problem back and start worrying again. This is exactly when you need to trust most. This is when you need to say, okay, I don't understand why this is happening, but I trust that it's part of the process. I trust that I'm being guided to something better. I trust that this is all working out for my highest good. This kind of trust in the face of apparent difficulty is advanced spiritual practice. It's easy to trust when everything is going well. It's much harder to trust when things look like they're falling apart, but this is exactly when your trust is most powerful. This is when you're declaring to the universe, I believe in you no matter what my physical eyes see. I believe in the power of good no matter what circumstances suggest. And I promise you, if you can hold this trust, if you can maintain this faith, you will witness miracles. You will see situations that seemed impossible resolve themselves. You will experience outcomes that are better than anything you could have planned. You will understand why things had to unfold exactly the way they did. This is what it means to live by faith instead of by sight. It means trusting in what you can't see more than what you can see. It means believing in the invisible realm of spirit more than the visible realm of matter. It means knowing that there's a power working behind the scenes that's orchestrating everything for your highest good. And here's the beautiful paradox. When you live this way, when you give everything to God and stop worrying, you actually have more control over your life. Not the ego's version of control, which is really just an illusion anyway, but real influence. You have the power to shape your reality through your consciousness. You have the ability to attract what you want by becoming a vibrational match for it. You have the capacity to create miracles by aligning with the miraculous. This is your true power. Not the power to force things to happen, but the power to allow things to happen. Not the power to manipulate circumstances, but the power to flow with the perfection that's already unfolding. Not the power to fight against what is, but the power to accept what is and trust that it's leading you somewhere better. So right now, I want you to do something. I want you to take a moment and think about what you've been worrying about. What's been keeping you up at night? What's been weighing on your mind? What problem have you been trying to solve all by yourself? Get clear on what it is, and then consciously give it to God. Say it out loud if you can. Say, I give this to you. I can't handle this on my own. I'm tired of carrying this burden. I trust you to resolve this in the perfect way at the perfect time. Thank you for taking care of this for me. And then here's the most important part. Let it go. Really, let it go. Stop thinking about it. Stop analyzing it. Stop trying to figure out how it's going to work out. Every time your mind goes back to that worry, gently redirect it. Remind yourself, I've given this to God. It's being handled. I don't need to worry about it anymore. And then focus on something else, something that brings you joy or peace. This might feel strange at first. Your ego will fight you on this. It'll tell you that you need to keep thinking about the problem. It'll try to convince you that if you stop worrying, something bad will happen. But don't listen to your ego. Your ego doesn't have your best interests at heart. Your ego only knows fear and limitation. Your higher self knows that you're safe, supported, and guided. As you practice this, as you keep giving your worries to God and keeping them there, something shifts inside you. You start to feel lighter. You start to breathe easier. You start to sleep better. You start to smile more. You start to enjoy your life again. And this change in your energy changes everything. You become more attractive to opportunities. You become more magnetic to solutions. You become a beacon for miracles. And the miracles will come. They might not come in the way you expect. They might not come on your timeline, but they will come. And often, they'll be better than anything you could have imagined. Because the universe isn't limited by your imagination. The universe isn't constrained by your past experience. The universe has infinite possibilities available, and it can deliver solutions that are perfect for you in ways you never would have thought of. I've seen people healed from illnesses that doctors said were incurable. I've seen people receive money from the most unexpected sources when they were on the verge of bankruptcy. I've seen relationships restored that seemed beyond repair. I've seen careers transform overnight. I've seen people find their purpose and passion after years of feeling lost. And in every single case, it happened after they stopped struggling and started surrendering. It happened after they gave it to God. This is available to you too, right now, today. You don't have to wait. You don't have to become more spiritual or more worthy or more anything. You just have to be willing to let go, willing to trust, willing to believe that there's a power greater than yourself that wants to help you. And as you practice this, as you make surrender your way of life, you'll start to notice something beautiful. You'll start to notice that you're happy for no reason. You'll wake up in the morning feeling grateful just to be alive. You'll look at the sky and be moved by its beauty. You'll interact with people and feel genuine love and connection. You'll experience joy that doesn't depend on your circumstances. This is the peace that passes all understanding. This is the joy that's independent of external conditions. This is what happens when you stop fighting life and start flowing with it. This is what happens when you give it all to God and trust that everything is being taken care of. And from this place of peace and trust, you become more effective in the world. You make better decisions. You take more inspired action. You attract better opportunities. You create better outcomes. Not through struggle, but through alignment. Not through force, but through flow. Not through worry, but through trust. This is the secret that the great spiritual teachers throughout history have been trying to tell us. Let go. Surrender, trust. Have faith. Stop trying to do it all yourself. Allow the universe to support you. Give your burdens to God. and watch as the impossible becomes possible. You were never meant to carry the weight of the world on your shoulders. You were never meant to figure everything out on your own. You were never meant to live in constant worry and anxiety. You were meant to live in peace. You were meant to experience joy. You were meant to trust in a power greater than yourself. You were meant to witness miracles. And the moment you truly surrender, the moment you really give it to God and stop worrying, that's when the impossible starts happening in your life. That's when doors open that were previously closed. That's when solutions appear that you never thought of. That's when help arrives from unexpected sources. That's when you realize that you've never been alone, that you've always been supported, that you've always been loved. This is your birthright. This is your natural state. This is how you were meant to live. And all you have to do is stop fighting it. Stop resisting it. Stop trying to control it. Just let go. Trust. Have faith. Give it to God. And watch what happens. Watch as your life transforms. Watch as miracles become your new normal. Watch as peace replaces anxiety. Watch as joy replaces fear. Watch as grace replaces struggle. You are so much more powerful than you think you are. Not because of what you can do with your own limited strength, but because of what can be done through you when you align with the infinite power of the universe. You are a channel for miracles. You are an expression of divine love. You are a co-creator with God. But you can only experience this power when you stop blocking it with your worry and your need to control. So today, make a decision. Decide that from this moment forward, you're going to practice surrender. You're going to give your worries to God. You're going to trust in the process. You're going to have faith that everything is working out for your highest good. You're going to stop struggling and start flowing. You're going to stop forcing and start allowing. You're going to stop worrying and start trusting. And as you do this, as you make this your practice, your life will change in ways you cannot yet comprehend. You will experience a level of peace you've never known. You will witness synchronicities that take your breath away. You will receive help from sources you never expected. You will find solutions to problems that seemed unsolvable. You will experience the impossible becoming possible in your life. This is not a promise that everything will always be easy. This is not a guarantee that you'll never face challenges. What this is a promise that you'll never have to face those challenges alone. It's a guarantee that there's always a power working on your behalf. It's an assurance that when you surrender to God, when you give your worries away and trust in the process, miracles happen. So give it to God. Stop worrying. Trust the process. Have faith. And watch as the impossible becomes not only possible, but inevitable. Watch as your life transforms from struggle to grace, from anxiety to peace, from limitation to infinite possibility. This is your moment. This is your chance. This is your opportunity to step into a new way of being. Take it. You won't regret it. I promise you that.